Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here about Kagurabachi, chapter number 118. This chapter is titled, The Irishima Talks, Part 2. And for the life of me, I don't know if I'm just forgetting some of my Kagurabachi knowledge, but I do not remember any time in Kagurabachi thus far we have had a direct continuation of a chapter in the form of hey, the Irishima Talks, Part 2. That is just not really the way that Kagurabachi operates as a manga. We don't really have these Part 2s of chapters very often, even though the entire story is a serial going from one episode to the next to the next to the next. It's not like an episodic where we just cut away, oh, this week Shiba's doing this side jinx, Kurashige is doing this, oh, now we go into the future where Chihiro is doing all these things with Hakuri, right? Kagurabachi is a serial like a lot of manga, a lot of shonen action manga are, And because of that, one of the biggest obvious examples to me is World Trigger, where Daisuke Ashihara pretty much sits down and is okay, so what we're doing here is this chapter is about Osamu Mikumo. Well, this is Osamu Mikumo Part 1. And then eventually we get up to, oh, this is the 48th chapter that is focused primarily on Osamu Mikumo. This is Osamu Mikumo Part 48. You know what I'm saying there? And along with that, Kagurabachi just doesn't doing that, giving that unique chapter titles to every single chapter. So the addition of a Part 2 here is sort of puzzling to me. Of course, we have had the Enichi Sojo Bathhouse Quest chapters before, but I don't really think those count as actual Kagurabachi chapters. Yes, they are. There's a little bit of lore baked in there, but I think that you can very much skip those chapters and still have a very enjoyable time checking out Kagurabachi. You know what I'm saying? But just as soon as I open up this chapter, those were my initial thoughts, so there are the initial thoughts in the video too, I guess, right? But either way, last time on Kagurabachi, we had the Part 1 of the Irishima Talks incident pretty much go on and happen. As we saw this delegate from Japan was heading over to the island of Irishima to pretty much meet with a few members of the royal family, as it was supposed to be said. As all this happened, we also got a look into what Hasumi's up to, talking with this professor, who at the same time was explaining the legend of the Soga clan, and this very interesting Yukio-e painting that we saw on page 4 of last chapter, where we learned about the Mikaboshi, a sort of type of people who are referred to as demons, or this sort of sorcerer who was defeated by the Soga clan and then chased off into the sea pretty much. And the whole idea is the people that come from Irishima are these Mikaboshi, and we do end up getting that confirmed in this chapter. You know what I'm saying? Even though we were pretty dead on it last time, this time we have the full confirmation of a character being yes, that is us pretty much, right? But as all of this happened, the delegates rode over on this big iron ship, and then, oh, the iron ship exploded, leaving only 4 people alive, those 4 being Hiroto Soga, Togo Shiba, Yoshinojo Soga, and Shuji Mashiro. To pretty much appear on the island here is there's this, who I presume to be a prince of the Mikaboshi, though we really just have no clarification, and after what happens in Tomb in chapter number 118, I really have no idea, along with this person and some elite squads coming from Shokoku as well. And that was pretty much the end of last chapter, as Shiba was just hey, whoever you are, just go home, please. And we pretty much open up this chapter number 118 in this exact same position, as we see this, I'm just going to call him the prince in this chapter for simplicity of giving him a name and a title, though, as I mentioned, none of that's confirmed. We can learn in 2 chapters, he's not a prince whatsoever, and everything I'm saying is wrong, but just bear with me as I try to give this character a way for me to describe him in a one-word answer, you know what I'm saying? But we just see the prince sitting here, as we see that Yoshinojo looking down him along with Hiroto, and Mashiro sort of in the back, hand on the shoulder of the delegate, hey man, everything's going to be fine. While Shiba is now sitting on the couch, and he just says, go home, please. And the delegate sits here, and we also get a very big bird's eye view shot of everything going on here, as we see this shell conch that came up from the sea, what I presume to be a transport mobile or something, which had the more royal looking man along with these elite fighter guys also beside of him. And we just get a look where they are sort of on the edge of the beach looking in on everything going on here. And we get a little bit of an explanation from Mashiro as he sort of looks over and he's okay, so those 4 guys next to the old man are probably warriors, but Shiba and I should be able to handle that level of a fighter. the real dangerous one is. And we sort of focus in on the prince who is sitting on the couch. And the prince just says, I'll leave when my business is done. And we see that Mashiro is just like, okay, this guy is way more dangerous than the other four together. We can't allow him to move around freely. As we also get a reminder of the delegates' bodyguards who are just bleeding out dead on the ground around these two couches on the beach of Irishima. And at this point, Shiba's just like, okay then, how about this? I'll bite about that business. You actually don't want to talk, isn't that right? And we see the prince just sort of looks down, and Shiba just thinks, or Mikaboshi. And the prince looks up and says, oh, so you know. Then I'll cut straight to the chase. If you want to understand our motive, just look into history. And Shiba's like, hey, don't move too much here, or the gentleman around here will cut you. As we see that the prince is just like moving some of his hands around a little much, like making small hand gestures. And we just see the images here of Hiroto and Yoshinojo just looking down at the sky. And it's the same exact two panels we got last time. So just another example of Hokuzono just loving to reuse his panels. Like, not the big deal, but I'll sort of get into it how it's a little annoying later on in this chapter when we see Yoshinojo's panel reused at like 8 times here in this chapter, right? But either way, we just see that they both of them look at the prince, and the prince just eventually starts to string together a little bit of a sentence. We are the Mikaboshi. Your ancestors chased us off, and we hid in the darkness for over 1,000 years. As he reaches into his pocket and starts to sort of rummage around, Chiba, Kanagawa, and Tokyo. The lands that I named are our price for that. And Chiba's like, hey, what are you doing in your pocket there? As we see it, the prince just reaches in, and he pulls out a small knife. We see Mashiro looking at it, and the next thing we know, oh, the prince's fingertips are just cut off. Just mainly like the 3, his thumb, his pointer finger, and his middle finger. His other 2 fingers were sort of curled behind his hand, so they weren't sort of in the way of the sword slash. As we see, Hiroto sort of goes over, and he's just like resheathing the sword here in the moment. As Hiroto just says, next time it'll be your throat. And I just love how the prince like isn't even phased. He like holds his fingers up to his hands now bleeding. And this ore you call the Danseki. We pray to it. It protects us. We coexist with it. It is our God. And as he says this, we get a big focus on sort of a pin on his chest. And last time in the Kagurabachi chapter reviews, I talked about what that sort of like rope thing that goes across the shoulder is. And you know what? I'm gonna be real. It's a week later. I've totally forgotten the name of that thing. But it sort of seems like on this sort of like pendant thing that's hanging on his chest, a little bit of like rope hanging down from it as well, and rope connected to it from his shoulder. It seems like there's a little bit of Danseki in there. As the prince also just clenches his fist, blood splattering everywhere. Hiroto and Yoshinojo both go in, start, and look like they're getting ready to attack. As, oh, well, 3 of the elite squad guys that are standing next to the old man jump into action. We see Hiroto goes through, takes his blade, plunges it into the throat of the prince, and he's not looking good. There's just so much blood around that area. As these 3 guys go over, one takes Yoshinojo, one takes Hiroto, and one takes Shiba. The one taking Yoshinojo is just like taking him all the way through the woods, and we just see like the classic, like all of the tree branches and everything flowing everywhere. As we see that he's just being chased into the woods, we just see the smile that he has on his face here in the moment. The one on Hiroto goes into the water, and Hiroto seems like he's getting ready to fight underwater as well to quell this guy. And the one going after Shiba kicks him up into the air. Bad move, as Shiba then teleports them up even higher at the end of the day. And we quickly cut away from them as we look to the prince, whose neck is just bloodied. His eyes are almost faded, now dark. Like originally, like it seems like they were almost like black in color, you know? But here even more, it's just like they're completely glazed over. His mouth is like just got blood all over it from coughing everything up. And Mashiro is standing here on the beach, like still next to a delegate who's sitting on the couch and just having to watch all of this. As Mashiro's like, hey, what the? I mean, that was just a bit over the top. And he looks over as we see this like black smoke coming off of the 4th elite guard next to the old man on the shore of the beach. And Mashiro's like, yeesh, right? As he just thinks, I mean, I thought those guys weren't so tough, but they sent the Soga and the other guy flying. And what's with that black cloud they've got going on? As we see this final elite guard member rushes towards Mashiro. And Mashiro sort of like holds his hands and casts some sorcery and starts to form like these concentric circles in the air almost. And we see it sort of like pauses the sort of momentum of this elite fighter. As you just get a little bit of narration explaining, Mashiro's sorcery Aku creates pressure in a specified place and specified direction. As we sort of just get this sort of thing as Mashiro sort of looking, casting the sorcery, as the elite guard member says something for the first time, as in his hands he says, Kera. As we see this small bee-looking creature start to get formed through the power of his sorcery. It looks very rock-like and crystalline with some like crackling of black electricity going through it, and he shoots it just in the direction of Mashiro, and Mashiro's barely able to jump out of the way, and it completely breaks through his Aku barrier. And Mashiro's like, oh, damn it, like, he pierced it. Like, that sorcery, it almost looked like a bee. As all of these more sorcery circles are being formed by Mashiro's Aku, pretty much just like all around this elite guard, sort of like holding him in place, and we see the guard is having trouble moving through all of this. But either way, he's able to use some abilities, go through, and just lands a punch solidly into the side of Mashiro, throwing him on the ground. A big shockwave gets created, and Mashiro's like, oh my gosh, he's got inhuman strength and speed. As he looks up, another Karabi is coming right towards him. He's barely able to dodge out of the way, but again behind him the elite guard comes, as the elite guard member just grabs Mashiro by the neck, grabs onto his left hand, and just holds him up in the air here in the moment. And we also just see on his chest another one of these Dattenseki pendants, black ichor almost flowing out of them. As Mashiro even sees this and like, damn it, like, Dattenseki, as he remembers to what the prince said earlier. It protects us. And he just thinks like, oh wait, don't tell me. Is he actually using the power of the Dattenseki? They can wield its power that surpasses what the human body can contain? There's no way we can win with normal attacks. As Mashiro looks over behind him, where we see a sword flying through the air, bouncing off of all of these pressurized points, eventually going through and slicing off the head of this elite guard member. As Mashiro then just says, well, then again, I do have this. Talking about Kunoshige's blade along with his circles of sorcery, his Aku. Honestly, I just love Mashiro's power that we sort of see here. Is like, he's just able to like manipulate things in air by like choosing where pressure is in a specified place and location, and then just changing that, making heavier pressure to send something flying and bouncing around. It's just such a cool little thing, right? As Mashiro just explains, like, man, I had my sword hidden in the sand clouds that were made pretty much. And we even see like it's just like self-levitating back into his sheath as he's using his Aku sorcery to do that. Mashiro has got great sorcery control. It is legitimately amazing, you know what I'm saying? But either way, he just continues to think, Shokoku, now, how many people actually live there? Are they all hostile guys like these? If that place is crawling with guys like this... As Mashiro looks over, and walking out of the water is Hiroto. On his sword is the elite sorcerer guy, just completely dead, like just impaled all the way through. As Hiroto just says like, no more ocean stuff for me, as he sort of walks up and he's like, man, it really stings all of my wounds I've got, right? And Mashiro's like, yes, like, hey, but you beat that dude in the water, congratulations. Walking over from the woods is then Yoshinojo, and he's like, hey, is Shiba dead? He's just casually cracking his neck. And then coming down from the sky is Shiba, taking this final dude, and he just explodes on the ground pretty much. He's like, nope, I'm real sorry. And Yoshinojo sort of looks over at Shiba and laughs a little bit, as Mashiro's just like, oh man, just nicks and scratches? Like, these guys are total beasts. Like, I mean, I've got a whole lot of broken bones, and all of them just look fine. As we then see, there's still the old man on the shore of the beach. It doesn't even look like he's moved. The shell conch transportation device is still just behind him, and Shiba is just looking over, and he's like, alright, now then. And at this point, we fade to black. As we go over to the next page, and we see there's a tape recorder here, and written on it is the Irishima conference testimony. As we just hear somebody say, an interviewer, so what happened next? And we just get a few images here of Shiba sitting in an interrogation room, just regular t-shirt on, patches all over his face, his arms bandaged, and he starts to move his arms from just resting on the table up in his hands, and he just buries his face in his hands. As we look over to where all of the couches and all the other stuff are, the delegate is just sitting here still like just freaked out on the couch, as the table and the couch that the prince are sitting on start to like float up into the air a little bit, as we just see the head of the prince leaned back and the blood forming up from it, almost acting like it wants to reach the sky. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi, chapter number 118. On this moment of, okay, actually, what is going on here, you know? Because, like, hey, I don't know, this wasn't my favorite chapter of Kagurabachi we've had in a while. Mainly, my favorite part of this chapter was really focusing in more on Mashiro and seeing sort of what he's made of. I still believe that Mashiro is going to end up being one of the Kabanabi leaders that we currently know. Just the way his hair is and just everything else about him really leads me to believe that he's just one of the unnamed leaders so far, which would make sense why we don't have a name for him yet. He knew Kunoshige's location, and we know why he knew Kunoshige's location is because he's known Kunoshige since before the war even happened, right? I am 100% on that goal. As far as Hiroto and Yoshinojo, I mean, they're fine. I'm really not a fan of how many times Yoshinojo's panel from last chapter was reused in this chapter. As far as I'm aware, I think I said like something like 8 or something earlier. No, we just see it's reused twice, but it's reused twice on like the same exact position of 2 different pages, you know? And I'm not really the biggest fan of that. I want to see more about how this character acts, expresses himself, and as fun as that would be, we also see that Hiroto is drawn in a few different ways here, and even though we have some of his panels like duplicated, I still just want to see different panels of these characters. And I understand, like, Hokuzono, I love when he reuses art, but whenever it's reused so frequently, especially in when a character just got introduced into the story, I don't really know if I like how all of this is going, right? Still, Hokuzono, I respect you, I cannot do what you do, and I'm not even going to act like I possibly could, but at the same time, yeah, I just want to see more original art of all of these characters, right? As far as, like, I really like seeing how strong all of these other guys are. We don't have to see Shiba's fight, don't have to see Hiroto's fight, and we don't have to see Yoshinojo's fight, just because we can see Mashiro's and we understand how strong these guys actually are. Mashiro's Sorcery Aku is just really, really cool, and I love how almost perfectly Mashiro knows how to manipulate it to help out himself fighting in so many ways. Like, I mean, I can see, like, the world where he, like, uses it on his arms to, like, build up pressure to help him punch things better or something like that. It's just so unique, and the whole moment of, like, oh, is Mashiro going to die? Is my theory just wrong about him being a Kabanabi guy? And then the sword forged by Kunoshige cutting the guy's head off? Bro, that is such an amazing panel, right? But of course, the big, like, clincher at the end of the chapter is like, oh, what is happening after this? What is going on with who I believe to be the prince? And just the way that it's framed in this Irishima conference testimony, and Shiba sitting here, like, reflecting on everything, like, do I have to tell what's happening next? It's honestly just a very emotional moment, especially knowing that we don't know a Hiroto, we don't know a Yoshinojo. The two of them are probably dying here, and I can see a world where Mashiro is, like, grievously wounded, but he ends up pulling it through, you know? But either way, great chapter of Kagurabachi. I know last week I released a video that was, like, 40 minutes long on Kagurabachi 117, and so far I've only been recording this video for, like, 21 minutes, so Hey, either way, I guess a shorter Kagurabachi video this week, but of course that doesn't mean that this chapter was any worse than last week's chapter. I think it is, but I mean, at the end of the day, I still love Kagurabachi, you know? If you did enjoy this video, I've covered every single chapter of Kagurabachi since chapter number 44, if I'm not mistaken. All of those videos will be linked in the description box of this video, along with the end card of this video as well. You can check out these videos on podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many others under the podcast name Glowplasma Talks. It is strictly just the audio from the videos, put on podcasting platforms, you know? And with all of that being said, great chapter of Kagurabachi, again, titled 118, The Irishima Talks, Part 2. And yeah, with all of that being said, I'll catch you guys next time for Kagurabachi chapter number 119. Until then, this will be Glowplasma, signing out.